Jason Rigby here, ABQ Business Podcast. Guys, I want to talk to you today about whiny employees. I think this can be essential in any type of relationship that you have too. So if you have somebody that you're partner with, living with, husband, wife, whatever it may be, and they're whining, I think this can help you. Or maybe you're the whiner. So you need to have some self-awareness and decide, yeah, I'm kind of being whiny. I'm kind of being a little bitch. Maybe it's time for me to change the way that I'm approaching things that I perceive to be negative. But I want to get into this because I see this all the time whenever I talk to leaders. They're like, I have this employee, super talented, but they're just so negative. And they just come to me as a leader and just whine and whine and whine. And it's never ending. And sometimes it can even just drag me down. I'll go have lunch with them, and then the whole time it's just complaining about other people that they work with. You're going to have that. Some of your people, especially in sales, you're going to have wolves. And these guys are ruthless. I mean, I'm not talking an unethical way. If they're ruthless in an unethical way, then and they're complaining and whining all the time, you need to fire them. I'm talking about somebody that may not be afraid to ask for the sale. Maybe they're not afraid to gain clarity. But they're a wolf. They like to work alone. They do well. Well, as a leader, you need to recognize that. You making them work in a team and making them be around other people is not helping them succeed. Maybe they need to work at home and work by themselves. Prime example, I knew a sales guy, and he loved to golf. So what did we do? Well, what time do you love to golf? He liked to golf in the mornings. It was like, why don't you go golf and then work after you get done golfing? Really? I can do that? What do you think happened to his sales? Yeah, he wasn't getting a hold of people at 8:30 in the morning or 9 o'clock. He was getting a hold of them at 11:30. But his sales went through the roof. It was like 25, 26% increase just off of that one decision. So if you have a wolf, let him be a wolf. Don't force them to sit into team meetings and have conversations. That's not their nature. Maybe you have that person, because the reason I'm talking about this, because I just faced this. Maybe you have a person who just is afraid, they're passive aggressive, always fearful, and they've come to you because you've worked such a good relationship with them that they feel like they can trust you. But they're this passive-aggressive, whiny type personality. How do you handle that? How do you handle that when they come to you and it's just constant irritation? Because what can happen, and what happened for me, is that I would see them and immediately get irritated because I would know what's happening. And I would try to tell them to think positive. You need to stay focused. I would write them up, have firm talks with them, coach them. Be patient. Then I thought, well, as a leader, let me listen. Let me have patience in listening. Let me give them encouragement. Let me give them support. But then eventually over time, I would lose patience. And then they would just drag me down again and again and again. So how do you put a positive spin on this? Here's failure in your team. The wolf, he's easy to handle. Let him go do his own thing. Empower him to do that. Make sure he's being ethical, and leave him alone to do what he needs to do. This person, on the other hand, they have low self-awareness and low emotional IQ. So you have to make the decision, one, that you're the boss. You're the leader. What you decide stands. Now, they can give input, but if it's complaining, different thing. So what I would do is have team meetings where I talk about how we're going to approach complaining, how we're going to approach if we disagree. And then you have to teach that emotional intelligence to your team or to this person. Take the time to do that. If you don't have the time to do that, because insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, we know that. If you don't have the time to do that, you need to let them go. You're like, oh, they're super nice and they're just always on time and it doesn't matter. It's toxic. You wouldn't be in a relationship with a person that was just constantly whining. you wouldn't be in a relationship with somebody that was just never ending in their stream of complaints. It doesn't make you productive. It doesn't make your team productive. Because here's, let me give you the sad truth. If they're willing to come to you and complain as a leader, that person that they're working next to, or the 3 people that they're working next to, they're being toxic with them all freaking day long. So if they'll come to you and complain for 10, 15, 20 minutes, I guarantee you for hours on end, they're complaining to everybody else. And that's a conversation you need to have with everybody else. Because if you get them and put them in a room and say, hey, you guys be honest with me, you 3 work with Jim. How is Jim's attitude? I need to know because we need to correct this as a team. They're going to open up to you and let you know pretty quickly how irritated they are with Jim. They're being nice because you're the boss and they get a paycheck from you. But if you allow the floodgates to open up, which is good, because it's going to create trust. But guess what? If you do this, you have to handle the problem. Jim is your problem on your team. His complaining is your problem. If they want to have chronic complaining and be constantly negative, you have 2 options. You can battle them, and you can teach them, and you can bring them up, but that takes a time. That takes time and consideration. And do you have that time to be able to spend with him? Is he willing to be humble enough? And this is key. This is something where coaching comes in. Will he recognize that he has a problem? Is he self-aware enough to correct himself when he's coming to you? And can you put that responsibility onto him? Jim, you come in and you complain to me all the time. The employees around you, you complain to them. I've heard you multiple times. You need to be self-aware enough that you catch yourself when you do this. Next week, we're going to have a meeting, and I want you to tell me times that you caught yourself and stopped yourself from complaining. Times where you wanted to walk into my office, but you walked away because you knew that complaining is wrong and it's toxic. Do you realize that you're being toxic? You need to put the responsibility back onto them, because if they're not willing to take the responsibility and be humble enough to learn from you, you've got to let them go. You know, you hire slow, fire quick. I have used that. It has worked so tremendously. Your onboarding, work on that. Don't hire people off of hunches. Your hunches are horrific. Jeffrey Dahmer, look how everybody loved to talk to him. Look how nice of a guy he is. You watch the Netflix documentary on there, and you're like, wow, this guy wasn't that bad. All these serial killers, how are they able to communicate with somebody? Hunches. Think about it. But then after a while, you get to know the person. It's like, something's off with this person. Something's kind of weird. Think about it. You have to make that decision. If you don't make that decision, you are not a good leader. It is your responsibility. You're a leader for a reason. And it's to do things like this. It's to handle these people. It's hurting your team. It's hurting your productivity. It's hurting your business. You say, well, Jim's been with me for 15 years. Well, then I would hope you would have enough trust where you could say, Jim, guess what? You've been with me for 15 years. For the last 10 years, all you do is complain. I've put up with it for a decade. We have got to stop this. How are we going to work together to stop this? You're being toxic to the company and to others. Well, I don't want to have that conversation. Well, then you're not a good leader. I'm telling you, the only way to solve this, there's only one option, and that is you taking the responsibility as a leader and putting your authority out there in a loving way. You want to make sure that you're loving. You don't want to put out expectations that are unrealistic, but you need to be firm and understand your whole team needs to know this is not acceptable behavior. This, you cross the line. When we have sexual harassment issues, we're quick to say, oh, yeah, I got to handle this. And we handle it very quickly, right? It's the same thing. It's toxic. It's negative. It's dragging down your whole team. And that person's not meeting your standards. If they don't meet your standards, they don't need to be on your team. Maybe you can transition them to another team. Maybe another leader would like to have Jim, and he has the time and the ability to work with him. I've done that before, where I've transitioned other employees to other, and I've been honest with the manager, said, hey, what do you think about this person? Would you like them on their team? My leadership style is a little bit different. So I'm wondering if you could work with them and see, and the manager will say, no, I don't have time for that, or yeah, I would love that. I need another employee in this area. I think I could work with that. And a different leadership style, maybe a different change for Jim. Next thing you know, he's being positive again. See, these are the things that you have to understand as a leader. That hard decisions is what helps you gain trust with your other teammates, because they're going to see you act on this. Now, they don't trust you as a leader. All they know is that Jim's just running around complaining. But guess what happens? That's contagious. You could get 2 or 3 other people coming to you and complaining. And then what happens? Now you're disrespected. And then people are going to walk all over you. And they're going to make you do their work because they know they can get away with it. When they disrespect you as a leader, they will dump stuff onto you. It's crazy, but that's how it works. So if you're running around putting out fires all the time, constantly doing everybody's work, it's because the employees around you don't respect you. And they're like, oh, the leader will handle this. Bob will handle this. Susan can handle this. It's because they don't respect you. And it's because you let something like this, like a gym, you let something like this gain traction. And now this toxic mold, this black mold, that's what you need to think of it as. This black mold is all over your team and all over your people, and it's causing you to not be as productive as you should be. So I encourage you today, if I can encourage you with one thing, it is to handle it. Be the leader that you know that you should be.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share. And go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.